Hello, I hope you're all well. Just waiting to see if this all gets loaded and everything before we begin. Perfect. Hello, let me know when everyone is on this. Just drop a message letting me know that you're here. Perfect. Let me know. We'll just wait just 1 or 2 minutes for everyone to get here and then we'll begin properly, okay? Perfect. Just give me a few thumbs up, likes, similar, just to let me know you're here, and then I can begin as soon as we're ready to go, okay? Perfect. Well, it seems that everything is up and everything is running. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to begin. So first of all, a huge thank you to Saba for having me here again, speaking to you guys. I gave a Facebook Live, I think, just about a few months ago, in July, and this one was about very much in general kind of parenting for academic success. And I'm going to do my utmost not to touch too much on those topics today because I'm sure we can put the link to that previous live in the comments section for this video. So if you want to learn more about that side of things, you really can do. You know, that one was much more about talking about things like a growth mindset in your children and how we can do that, creating this self-reflective mindset in your children, how you can do that, and creating this high-performance mindset in your children and how you can do that. So I really do feel that those videos are going to be that video will be really, really helpful for you guys to check out if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. With this video, my aim's a little bit different. Guys, we are in very unprecedented times as we have been for these past few months. But one of the biggest challenges right now is just this ambiguity and uncertainty that you're all facing, that we're all facing, especially with regards to your kids' exams. Right, there's just postponements here and there. Countries got different lockdown tiers and we don't know what that means in terms of will there be a 2-week half-term circuit breaker, how will schools bring in kids to do the 11 plus exams for? And there's just a whole lot of uncertainty here. And yes, this is immensely stressful on your kids, right? It's immensely stressful on them, but it's also immensely stressful on you, I'm sure. And I've been following through this page and seeing some of the questions parents have been asking, and what I've really loved seeing is how you guys are coming together as a community and really trying to support each other, because there really is no right or wrong way about this, and especially for some first-time parents, it can be so overwhelming as it is, let alone in these times. So with this in mind, I really wanted today to just be something that ultimately leaves you guys feeling positive, leaves you feeling hopeful, leaves you feeling optimistic, right? It's something that will just leave you on a good note on this Sunday evening so you feel ready to go for the week ahead. And what we're going to do is I'm going to briefly introduce myself very quickly, first of all, for those who don't know me. And I'm going to give you 3 points to think about with regards to how you can navigate this time for your kids, right? To minimize them burning out, to allow them to perform as well as they can in this. Then a more general point, so one general point in terms of you and your family during this time. And then a final one on yourselves, you guys as parents. So it'll be 5 points in total we're going to briefly run through at the moment with this. So the first place I wanted to start was, as I said, just to briefly introduce myself. So my name is Cam Taj, and I studied at Cambridge University, where I did engineering. Before that, I was at QE Boys School, and as a matter of fact, for any students who do get into QE Boys, I visit there frequently and give talks for careers events and assemblies. So your students will actually get to meet me in person in that occasion, in that time. So I went to QE Boys and I went to Cambridge University, where I did engineering. I did 4 years of engineering, so I got my master's as well. And then after that, I went and worked in a management consulting firm in the city, following which I decided this just was not for me. I knew what I wanted to do, which was this field of performance psychology and working around mindset and working to help things like managing stress, attaining clarity towards our goals, and really improving our performance and optimizing different areas of our lives. It was something that I became very passionate about while I was in Cambridge, and something which has formed kind of the foundations at that time are now the foundations for my career now. So that's kind of my background and where I'm coming from. Again, if you have more questions on that, please do just drop me a message, drop me an email as well. So please do let me know with regards to whether that would be something that I can give you more insight on. Now, where I am now in my life, with regards to the academic side of things, I'm the founder of Exam Success Academy. So it's a resource that has over 100 plus videos for students to watch and engage with and can carry out activities for, around things like time management, mindset, stress management, and so on. And I also published a book called The Ultimate Guide to Exam Success. And I go into schools, I go into companies, and a range of different organizations talking about these things like stress, mindset, resilience, and other ways we can optimize our lives. So, enough about that. Let's get to what is really going to be hopefully useful and helpful in this time, right? Let's just take this Sunday evening to just relax a little bit and just get some perspective on where we've been going and what's been going on. So, guys, before I begin this, as we focus on this aim being that it's an anxiety-inducing time with the uncertainty around the exams that our kids have. When will they be? When will they be? How our kids are responding. They may have peaked a few weeks ago, a few months ago even. And as a result of that, now they're kind of feeling burnt out. They don't know where they want to go with this. They might be feeling demotivated and stressed. The first thing I want to say before all this is, guys, no one piece of advice that I'm going to give here, or anyone will give, is going to work for every child. No one piece of advice will work for every child, right? You have got to use your judgment as parents as to what may work for them through you doing your research and you learning and you watching things like this video and watching other videos and reading other resources to try and just figure out what would work best for you. And most importantly, be willing as parents to experiment, right? Be willing to experiment outside of what feels comfortable. Right, you as parents, one time you were kids and you had your parents, and I'm sure they did things a certain way, and that was how you were raised. And what can often become quite a pattern for us is we either do the same thing that our parents did, or we do the opposite of what they did because it went really, really wrong. And because of that, what happens is it just kind of narrows our mind to what may be possible. It's either this or the opposite of it. Whereas in reality, what happens is we want to be researching and learning about all these different areas to find ways that we can optimize with regards to how we're nurturing our kids, but also giving ourselves as parents permission to make mistakes, and also giving our kids permission to make mistakes. And this isn't an entirely popular frame of perspective, but I promise you this, you're not going to figure out with you and your kid what's going to work best for them if you're not willing to experiment a little bit. And while this time, the 11 plus exam itself, is not the ideal time to be experimenting or changing things up, because we're in unprecedented times, because of all this uncertainty, if something you're doing is not working, it is time to change it. What did Einstein say? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So it really is important for us to challenge that idea, to challenge the ideas that we have had that may not be working anymore given how the situation is changing. So, guys, a couple of pieces of advice with regards to this. The first one right now, your kids are feeling demotivated perhaps, you are at a loss as to what to do. Do you push them a bit harder to just keep focusing because it's just the final push until these exams are done? Or do you take a step back, but what if they don't perform on the day? What if you have those regrets around that, right? The thing I'm going to say here, guys, is this is a time where I'm going to ask you as parents to ask, not assume. And what I mean by that is, as parents, of course, your kids are, 10, 11 years old, or maybe even younger, some of you watching this, maybe some a bit older. We tend to make decisions for our kids, right? And that's fair. You have this life experience and they don't quite have that yet. They haven't got a developed prefrontal cortex just yet either. So because of that, it's hard for them to perhaps make the most rational decisions. But this is unprecedented territory. These times call for different measures. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to ask and not assume. And what I mean by that is actually go to your child later tonight, tomorrow, whenever. And if you haven't asked them this question already, ask them, hey, I get that this has been a pretty stressful time right now. We don't know what's going on, right? I feel this way, and I can imagine you must feel the same way too, right? What would you like to do about it? How do you feel about it? What do you think we could do differently to make this period a bit easier for you? Now, here's the thing. Some of their suggestions might not be particularly helpful, right? Some of them might be things like, forget these exams, I don't want to do them, whatever it is. But you might be surprised. You might be surprised at what they say. And the reason why I'm going to ask you guys to ask your kids this and not assume this is because right now, you as a parent probably feel out of control, right? You feel out of control in that you don't know when these exams are happening. You don't know what best to do. I promise you, your kid probably feels even more out of control than you do. They don't know what's happening. They don't know when these exams are happening either. They've been working for something. They have no idea when it's going to come to fruition. They're feeling pretty stressed out as well. They don't like being out of control either. So just by asking that question, you're basically saying, hey, let's just share a bit of this. Let's share this challenge together. Not here's what I'm telling you to do. It might be that one small thing that changes things up in this time. It might just alleviate a bit of burden. It might open up a bit of dialogue between you guys. Again, you don't need to do whatever your kid says, of course not. But it's just about giving them a chance to air what they have to say, to process what they're going through as well. Right? Now, this question, I think, is really important for us to frame as well, right? And to use things like presumptions as well, to say, look, to your child, it's so important for you, like obviously, perhaps for you, it's important too that you get into these schools, right? Like you've been working so hard, it would be nice for you if you were to have a chance to do it justice, right? So you're framing it in that tone and you go, so what do you think right now would honestly be most helpful for you to do that? And they might say, actually, I just think I need a break. I need a break for a day. I need a break for, not pushing hard each and every single day like I have been. Parents, in case you don't know already, and again, I've seen this on the comment boards in this page, so I hope that you are aware, taking a break is fine. Your child won't forget everything because they've taken some breaks. They won't forget everything. Other students who may be working when your child is not working, don't worry about that, right? What matters is not the quantity of what they're doing, but the quality at which they're doing it at, right? It's the quality that matters. And if they're not engaged, if they're tired, if they're exhausted, all those papers are not necessarily going in. It's an inefficient process. And what may work a lot better to change things up at this stage is to just give them a bit more of a break and to really allow them, or if they so decide, if they want that, to take a break, a bit more of a break than they would normally do so, in order to have greater quality when they actually come to study, right? And here's an idea in line with that I found really helpful working with my student clients who are in the 11 plus age. And what works really well for them with their parents. Again, you've got to use your judgment as to whether this suits your child or not, but give them the opportunity. And what this is that around this age, they're still being treated as kids, right? And just treating them ever so slightly as an adult, right? And I'm going to explain how you're going to do this. Ask them if they'd like to make a contract. Ask them if the two of you would like to, like adults, make a contract with each other, right? Because this is just such a strange time. And ask them what they would want, right? If you want them to work hard and they don't really want to, right? Ask them, okay, so what would be reasonable for you, right? And they might say, I want to play 2 hours of video games every day, right? And you can go, okay, well, if you wanted to play 2 hours of video games, what do you think I would say to that? You don't respond. You ask them to go into your head and respond. And they say, oh, probably you're going to say, no, you can't do that. And you can go, why would I say that? And they'd go, oh, because, you want me to do well in these exams and stuff like that. And you ask them again, well, do you want to do well in these? And they can think about it and go, yeah, I'd like to, right? Perhaps they would say that. The idea with this is now you're getting them to answer these questions for themselves. You're asking the question, you're not assuming. And what it creates the grounds for is to create this contract with each other, where in the end you can negotiate, right? So they feel like an adult, and you feel as well that you're getting what you want as well. You can negotiate that, okay, for every half an hour you work, you can take a 10-minute break to do this thing. If you do one of these past papers today, then yeah, you can get half an hour of playing this game, for example, right? Now, the nuances of this are completely up to you as parents and with your child. And as I said, this advice might not work for every one of you. But if what you've been doing isn't working, it may be worth a change. And this contract strategy is what my parents used with me growing up in terms of my commitments to my sports that I really wanted to uphold. And they were like, well, look, as long as your parents' evening reports Hi, every test you do, you come back to us and you let us know what your grades were, and you're getting A's, essentially. We will take you wherever you want to go for your sports. And I said, that is just too good a deal to pass up. And I stayed on track, straight A's, and I was able to do my sports that I love doing as well. And it was I really appreciated what they did for me, because at that stage I wanted autonomy. I wanted a sense of freedom and agency, and I'm a grown-up, even though I was just a kid. So it's just an idea to keep in mind, right? This contract of agreement idea. Even if you don't go for that, keep this idea, right, of ask, don't assume, right? Just ask them these questions instead of assuming for them. So that's point number one, asking, not assuming, and the contract. Point number two, during this time, I really hope that you guys are doing this already. I really hope you are. If you are, you keep doing this. If you're not, consider it as an option. And this point number two is around the topic of praise, right? Praise. So, praise is, as we know, and I'm sure as you know, right? I'm going to assume that for certain parents from certain ethnic minorities, your parents didn't praise you all too much, right? It was a bit more tough love. It was more, you get 90%, they go, why not 95? Or why not 100, right? Guys, how did that make you feel if you're one of those parents? How did it make you feel? I'm betting it didn't feel pretty good, right? I'm betting a part of you didn't feel great about that. And what it perhaps made you feel was this idea that you as this parent, right? You as this child need to achieve a certain thing for your parents to love you. Now as an adult, you know that's not the case and that's not how it works. But imagine yourself as a child, right? This idea of their love, right? Their love for you being attached to how you perform is a really dangerous area. And one thing that I see with parents who go, yeah, and of course I praise my child, is the mistake they're making is they're only praising their child when they perform, right? And here's the danger with this. That child then feels that in order to keep getting praise, they have to keep performing. They heap on pressure on themselves because they don't want to disappoint you and they want to get that praise, right? Guys, praise should not be reserved just for outcomes. We have to learn how to praise the process, right? Praising for the focus they're putting into the task they're doing, not just how they do, right? And again, for some parents, this might seem quite counterintuitive, but this is what the literature is currently showing. This is what the studies are kind of showing around kids, and especially as well in the field of sports in kids. There's a reason why 70% of kids stop doing sports after the age of 13. It's because they feel so much pressure coming from their parents. Because even though they're getting praise from their parents, that praise is only coming when they perform. And they're worried about what will happen if they don't, right? What will happen if they don't? Start praising your child for focus and process. And tell them why. Tell them why you're praising them. Because here's the thing. I managed to get straight A stars in my GCSEs. My parents didn't really praise me. They just said, oh, nice. You happy with that? And I said, yeah. I said, great. I'm glad to hear that. That was it. Now, here's the thing. At the time, that really hurt me. That really, really, really hurt me because I wanted to get a bit of acknowledgement. And it kind of bothered me. And here's the thing. I remember speaking to my dad about this years later and asking him why it was just such a small thing for him. And he goes, it wasn't a small thing. I just didn't want you feeling like we will only love and praise you for getting good grades, you know? And it just blew my mind that he thought at that level. But because he hadn't communicated to me why he was doing that, I still felt hurt at the end of it. So again, just one extra step. Tell them why you're praising them. Tell them why you're praising them. I'm praising you because you're able to focus for 25 minutes straight. Great job. I'm praising you right now because I'm so proud of how this has been such a tough time and we have no idea what's going on. And you're still coming home and sitting behind that desk and doing this paper. That's what I'm praising you for. That's why you're incredible. I really respect that. Say that to a kid. I really respect that. You know, and see them light up. See them light up and go, what? It's such a meaningful thing to say to your child, and it's such a meaningful thing for them to feel. So give them praise for sticking through this difficult and unpredictable time, and how proud you are of them for doing so. And give them praise for the focus and process, not just the outcome. I received an email from a parent, actually from this group just yesterday, and I'm not going to name names, and I wanted to celebrate first of all if this parent is watching, because her son got really high score in the QE Boys test, and she'll be going there. And in this email she was saying how it's all wonderful, but now he has no motivation to keep working for his other entrance exams, right? Whereas for her, she feels like this is such a great chance for him to just love the journey at low stakes. There's no stakes now. He's got his place at QE. He can go and study these things, and yet he's just unmotivated completely, right? And this is such an interesting problem, right? And this is what happens when we we train our kids to be too focused on the outcome. In his mind, he's got QE. He's relaxed. He's chilling out. Why do the other things? Because it was just about the outcome. Whereas if you teach them how to admire and enjoy that process, right? If you give them praise and show your admiration for them, for honouring the process, for honouring their learning, their love for learning, they may still want to engage with these things far beyond that. Guys, a kid who is an overachiever at a young age and goes to these top schools, but it's entirely around this fear of disappointing their parents and needing to get that grade, or else they're going to feel bad about themselves, is eventually going to burn out and suffer. Right? It's going to be about they're going to burn out and suffer. So, whereas that child who perhaps doesn't perform as well but is praised for, I'm so proud of you for just coming in here and doing this every day. I'm so proud of you for this love of learning. Isn't this cool what we're doing right now? And having that mindset. That child is so much more likely to develop this resilience such that they don't feel as immense pressure, because their love for learning can take them through these challenging times when they don't know if they're good enough or not. Whereas the child who's so afraid of failing and disappointing their parents, that child is more likely to be able to succumb to that pressure. And I love this note that this comment that came up here. I think avoiding the word fail is critical. You know what? I think that's a really, really valid point, right? If we attach a negative connotation, especially to the word failure, right? It's really dangerous. And what we want a child to see is that this is all about lessons, right? It's not failure, it's about lessons, right? Every single time you don't get the outcome you desire, that doesn't mean you failed. It meant, as it said, you didn't get the outcome you wanted. So what can you do differently? What can we do differently? What can we learn differently? And this is why having this identity as a learner can be so, so powerful, right? And it's why it's so important at this early stage to start praising them for learning and for sticking with that process, regardless of the outcome. So I think this is so, so powerful as an idea to keep in mind. And just again, checking the comments from Deep, I've seen that burnout with friends that have been toppers all their life. You and me both. Having gone to Cambridge, I've met my fair share of insecure overachievers. And unfortunately, many of them now in their stages in their careers, whether they're at these top law firms or these top banks, and they are burning out because they don't know what's driving them anymore. And what was working for them, this fear of letting others down, just doesn't seem to resonate with who they're becoming anymore. And whereas instead, if you can cultivate that love for learning, right? If you cultivate that sense of embracing and enjoying the process, it can all become a much more joyful journey, and it cultivates a deeper resilience such that when you fail to meet the outcome, you're thinking, what can I do differently next time? Not, it's over, I can never do this. So that was point 2 on praise. Point number 3 is about practicalities, right? So some parents are asking right now, well, okay, this is all great on a hypothetical level, but what about actually today when my kid has just come back from, tomorrow when he comes back from school, or she comes back from school, and we want to do some 11 plus preparation, right? And they're just burnt out and they're tired and we don't know when the exams are. So a couple of options that I think are really good to consider. Again, it's about changing things up. If beforehand they were sitting down for 45 minutes to an hour doing questions, change it up. One technique that has been so, so helpful for me when I was studying at Cambridge University, and even now in what I do, is something called the Pomodoro technique. Now, this was a technique devised by a man called Francisco Cirillo in the, I believe, 1980s. And Francisco Cirillo came up with this idea of the Pomodoro technique, where you essentially study for 25 minutes, and you take a 5-minute rest. Then you do another one, 25 minutes, then a 5-minute rest. And then another one, 25 minutes, 5-minute rest. And after the 4th one, you take a much longer rest, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, for example. Now, what this does is it breaks it up into different chunks, right? Which can actually be quite helpful to give your child a bit of rest. Now, what this means again is if your child is someone who's quite competitive and likes challenges, you can even make it a challenge. How many Pomodoros can you go through in a day, if you wanted to after school, right? And if that resonates with them, if that doesn't resonate with them, don't push them in that direction at all. It might be more like, let's just change this up, let's take more breaks. They might be convinced to do something for 25 minutes, whereas the idea of an hour of doing it is just so exhausting for them at this stage. So it's really good to keep that in mind as an idea as well. And what you can do as well is in those longer breaks perhaps you have, you can do some reflecting, right? You can ask them questions. How do you think that one went? Where do you think you made some silly mistakes, if any? And ask them this before you've marked the paper, because it gets them to self-reflect. In my first Facebook Live I did in this group, which I'm sure we can put the link to later, I talked all about why self-reflection is so important. And what it will essentially mean is they can get more quality for less quantity. They can get more out of every paper they're doing, right? As opposed to doing more papers, but getting less out of each one that they do and getting progressively more tired. So this kind of 25 minutes, 5 minutes rest is a really good idea. And you can adapt that. Guys, as parents in your work, you can adapt that too. Start of the day when you have energy, 45 minutes work, 10 minutes rest in between. And as you get more tired in the day, 25-minute chunks with a 5-minute rest. And in that rest, you can listen to music, you can do a light bit of exercise if you want, you can reply to some messages if you have the discipline to, right? This is for you guys as parents. And for your kids, it can be like you can agree with them again in a contract. What would you like to do in that rest time? Maybe in their shorter rest, they'd like to, do something like, reply to, like, play 5 minutes on an app they have, right? Play for 5 minutes a game that they like on their phones, for example, right? And in their longer break, maybe they want to play some video games. Well, if they're doing this technique, there's no reason why not. If any of you guys have problems, by the way, with video games as parents, because this is now actually going on to point number 4, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But if any of you guys have problems with video games and your kids playing them too much right now, please do message me, because I'm not personally a huge fan of them, but they do have a purpose. And we're going to actually touch on that in a minute as well. Because just to summarize so far, before I jump onto points 4 and 5, the 3 points we've touched on for your kids. The first one, ask, don't assume, and maybe work on creating a contract based around that. The second one is praise for process and for focusing and for learning, not on the outcome. And the third is different working habit changes. So things like Pomodoro technique. Things like even if you're working from home, you and your child can work together during that 25-minute burst, for example. So then it feels like they're doing something with you. You can just have that sense of togetherness. So these are 3 things that I've suggested so far. And the last 2, I want to be fairly quick with them because I don't want to take too much of your Sunday evenings. The first one is about you guys as a whole family and you as an individual and your family unit, right? Guys, we're coming into winter now, right? And the truth is autumn, winter, and these seasons when we have less daylight are correlated with having lower moods and lower energy, right? You can research the studies if you like. It is a thing that happens to many, many people. The other side of it is that we have this uncertain situation, right, around lockdown, around are we going to go into tier 3 anytime soon? When will it happen? We don't know. Will it affect Christmas? Will it affect, whether they'll be in school or not, and all these kind of things, right? Now here's the thing, in the summertime when this was happening, your kids can still go outside and run around, right? They can still go outside and run around if they like that. They can still maybe meet in groups outside of that. But in the autumn, winter seasons, it might just be less feasible. And what I wanted to touch on here was just how important it is for you guys to check in with your kids, first of all, about, hey, how are you feeling about this stuff, right? And if they can't speak to you, then get in touch with like an older cousin they have, or an older brother figure they have, or something like that, right? Even a mentor or a coach or someone from this group that they can just speak to, just to talk about what they're going through. Because otherwise this period is already tougher on them than it would have been in other situations, right? Because if your kid's going to school as normal, it's fine, they're seeing their friends and socializing. But if they have weeks or even a month or so off, where they're not being around anyone else at this stage in their lives, it can be very, very draining for them, right? It can feel very, very monotonous and repetitive. And that's going to manifest, right? It's going to manifest as acting out at home, right? So it's so important for you guys to create, in a way, some family rituals, right? Things like playing a game together on Friday nights, whether it's a board game, whether it's going for a walk together or going cycling together or something, if the weather's good on a Sunday, right? Something that you guys can do together. And I appreciate that not everyone has the luxury of the time to do this, but I will say this, please prioritize this. If you feel like something else is more important, challenge that. Because ultimately, what is more important than your mental health and well-being and your child's mental health and well-being, right? Make the time to do these things together as a family, especially now when your child may not be able to interact with their friends. And this links to the point I mentioned earlier about video games. Guys, the way that a lot of kids are socializing nowadays in this time is through their video games. It gives them just a sense of like companionship with their friends who they can play these games where they stream together, right? Now, it's dangerous if it goes, 2, 3, 4 hours a day kind of thing on a weekday kind of thing. But if they're asking for an hour and it's in your contract where if they do this work and they do this, for example, exercise they're doing or whatever it is, they can enjoy that, don't feel bad as a parent. Don't worry that it's causing them harm or anything. It isn't. The number of people I met at Cambridge who play video games and still play video games to this day is very, very high, right? It does not affect their future lives in as serious a way as you might think, unless it becomes a problem in that they get addicted to it, in that they feel a sense of guilt as they're doing it, and that perpetuates into a form of self-loathing, right? So it's about, if it's in that contract, they can feel guilt-free about it, right? They can really enjoy it. So it's so, so powerful to create this family ritual time, but also recognize that right now they can't go and practically see their friends and play a game together or something in real life, go play some football or go and hang out together, right? Necessarily. It might be through video games they choose to do that. And this is where, again, it comes to you as a parent. No two kids are the same. Trust your judgment and don't be afraid to experiment as parents. Don't be afraid to try something out. Don't be afraid to try something out with them and it not work, and you actually say to your kid, hey, but wasn't it cool that we tried something different? Right? Because it'd be boring if it was all the same. And then they get to see firsthand from you that it's actually okay to try things out and then not go the way that you like, which is great modeling of behavior, which is my final point for this. Guys, your kids are watching you. Your kids are watching you and learning from you all the time. They are observing your behavior and taking it on for themselves. They're learning from that. So I know it's a hard ask to do, to say, if you can, work on your own sense of stress and anxiety. But if you can go to your child and talk to them, and they can see throughout your daily actions that, and you acknowledge that, yeah, this is a really tough time, isn't it? We just have no idea what's going on, right? We just have no idea what's going on. But you know what? We're going to come through it together, or we're going to come through it. And you reaffirm those kind of messages. That becomes the voice of your child's self-talk as well. Yeah, it's uncertain, we have no idea what's going on, but that's life, and we'll figure it out. Whereas if you yourself as a parent are getting stressed and anxious, and your child can sense this, they can sense this emotion. They believe this is the way you respond to situations like this. That is the behavior that they are going to learn from you, right? Unintentionally, of course, but that is what they're going to learn. And that is a habit that can perpetuate far beyond the 11 plus. So it's so important for us to role model these best behaviors as much as we can. And if you guys as a parent, if you as a parent right now are feeling anxious and stressed, use this group, right? Post on it, comment on it, and recognize that you guys are all in the same boat to an extent. Learn from those who've been there before and have got advice to heed. It doesn't make you any worse of a parent. Guys, every single one of you is doing the best you can with what you have, and you should remind yourselves of that as often as you can. You're doing the best you can with what you have in a really uncertain and unprecedented time. So please go easy on yourselves as well. You are not meant to know all the answers right now. No one does. This has not happened before. Since 11 plus has existed, there has never been a pandemic to deal with. You guys are in uncharted territory, and it is okay if at times you feel uncertain about whether what you're doing is right or not. The truth is you don't know. And yes, you can tell yourself, oh, but the stakes are so high if I get it wrong. Is that thought going to make you feel better? Is that thought going to help you solve the problem? Is it going to make your child feel better? The answer probably is not very much. So because of that, guys, I ask you, please do keep on top of your own mental health and well-being. Please do focus on your own self-care. Create that time for yourself to honor yourself as a person, because then you have more to give to those around you, to your family, to your loved ones, right? When you make that time for yourself, you're also teaching your child that it's good for them to make time for themselves too. Another positive behavior that you're role modeling. You're showing them effective boundaries as well. So please do keep this in mind. I've just seen a comment, is the video cutting out for anyone else? I don't know, I'm sorry if it is cutting out, but I do hope that when the live comes back, when you can replay it, it should be okay, fingers crossed. Guys, that really does bring me towards the end of my talk. The 5 key points. Ask, don't assume with your child, and see if you guys can form a contract together, perhaps, as to how you'd like to proceed. 2, praise them for focus and process and learning, not just for outcomes. 3, change up the working habits if they're not working anymore. Try things like the Pomodoro technique, and try things like working together in the same space, and focus on quality and not quantity. And the 4th one, recognizing that right now we're in unprecedented times, it's coming up to winter, and because of these things, the way that your child will socialize and want to connect with people is going to change. So be flexible as a parent and create family time, create family rituals that you guys can do together so that you still feel connected to each other. And the final one, it's all about you guys in the end of the day as well, right? It's all about you. Look after yourselves, take care of yourselves, and if you're able to do that, you'll role model that positive behavior onto your child. They will feel inspired by you. You'll have more energy to give to them and everyone else. And ultimately, you're going to feel more satisfied with your own life. And as we all know, the more satisfied we are with our own lives, the better we treat others, the more others want to be around us as well. So self-care is crucial. Don't neglect it. Don't neglect it. Thank you guys so much. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have any other questions or anything, please do put them in the comments. I'll hang around for a few more minutes. Otherwise, guys, you can reach me. My details were on the post already. Reach me on my website, camtaj.com, or go via the Exam Success Academy website of my courses. You can just drop me a message here on my Facebook page, camtaj, or via my personal one, camtajbash, which you can add me on and message me if you have any questions. You can email me on contact@camtaj.com. And that's really it. I hope you have a really pleasant Sunday afternoon and evening. I hope those of you watching this have enjoyed it. I hope that those of you who watch it later in your own time will really find it worthwhile as well. And please do check out the video I did, the Facebook Live in July as well, for more in-depth points on how to parent for academic success and well-being as well. Just a few of the comments. Deep, thank you so much for being here as well. Really appreciated your thoughts and comments throughout this about family rituals as well and being there for each other for any outcome. It really is positive. Sheena, I loved your comments about if the child doesn't reach the requirements of this test, they take a different road, not one of failure. I can vouch for this. I work pro bono with mentees who are A-level students at schools which are by no means grammar schools. And some of these kids are incredible. They're attending top universities now. They're going off and they're so much more proactive in so many ways than some of the kids I know from grammar schools and from schools which require exams. So it is by no means a death sentence if your child does not get into one of these schools for the 11 plus exams. It really isn't, especially if their home is one where learning is valued and where the connection is strong, right? That's what's going to keep them on track, even if their school isn't one of the ones that's going to have, so to speak, a lot more discipline and rigor academically. So please do keep that in mind. And a few other comments as well, just here and there. Deep, thank you so much for your kind words throughout this. It really does mean a lot. Sheena, thank you so much as well. Saba, always appreciated. Nina, so much has posted about mental endurance this year has been so testing already. I know it has, and it's honestly, just don't be afraid to reach out, is all I'm going to say. Don't be afraid to reach out if it's been tough at all, and as well with regards to your child as well. Recognize it's taken mental endurance from them, and remind them that you guys are in this together. And if you can support them, ask, don't assume, right? Ask them how they'd like to be supported right now. So, anything else as well? So, Prasanna said hi. Hi, Prasanna. I hope you've enjoyed this as well. Meenakshi, hello. Nice to meet you as well. I hope you've enjoyed this as well. And I believe that is that. Jasmine as well. Thank you so much. Great advice. I hope it was useful. Farina, helpful. I'm so grateful as well. I hope you found it useful. Cynthia, thank you. Thank you so much as well for attending. And yes, of course, you're also welcome. I really hope you found this useful. You have my details. That's it from me, okay, guys? Have a lovely week ahead, and we'll keep in touch. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you so much.